Good evening and welcome to this evening's Development Control Committee. Just for some housekeeping before we start the meeting, there are no fire alarms scheduled for this evening, so if the fire alarm sounds, please evacuate the building immediately. The fire exits are located behind you there and behind me here, and we will go down the stairs and meet in the War Memorial Park. Please note that this meeting is being webcast live on the internet. So please could everyone switch your mobile phones off or turn them to silent. Thank you. For the benefit of the members of the public watching or participating in this meeting, I would like to explain who everyone is. My name is Councillor Angie Freeman. I'm the Vice Chair of this committee and will be chairing the meeting this evening. To my right are councillors who will be making the decisions on the applications on this evening's agenda. To my immediate right and left are officers who will be presenting the applications and providing advice to the committee. The Development Control is a regulatory committee and not a political meeting. The committee will be considering the published papers and examining the evidence brought before us tonight and will make decisions based on planning reasons. We are guided by national and local planning policy and guidance. At the appropriate time, I will invite speakers to contribute to the meeting in the order set out in the update paper. May I ask all speakers, including visiting members, to speak clearly and to keep points made on the application to material reasons only, and no further dialogue between members of the committee and speakers will be permitted once questioning has finished. All speakers will be reminded of their permitted speaking time and will be advised when they have 1 minute remaining. If you are struggling to hear the proceedings because of the fan at the back, please let me know and we can arrange for it to be turned off. Thank you. May I ask all committee members to avoid repetition and to keep any comments on each planning application to a maximum of 4 minutes. I understand that planning can be emotive, and may I ask that everyone remains polite and professional throughout this meeting. So, first of all, we will go for apologies for absence and substitutions. I have apologies from Councillor Grassi, and Councillor Johnston is in for Councillor Bound, and Councillor Oborne is in for Councillor Durrant. Do I have any declarations of interest, please? Councillor Oborne?
Item 3 is my next door neighbour.
Thank you. I expect you to excuse yourself from the room for that one. I have no urgent matters, and so we move to the minutes. I've got 2 sets of minutes we need to agree. So the 25th of June and the 9th of July. I will move those from the chair. Are we all agreed that they are an accurate record? Thank you. I will sign those after the meeting. So now we move on to the main business of this evening, applications for planning permission and public participation thereon. So if we could have the first introduction. Thank you.
Thank you. This application is land at Stratton's Farm, Newbury Road, Kingsclere. The proposal is for the installation, operation and decommissioning of renewable energy generating station comprising ground-mounted PV solar arrays together with transformer inverter stations, site accesses, internal access tracks, security measures, access gates, other ancillary infrastructure and landscaping and biodiversity enhancements. So on the site location plan, it shows that the application site is to the west of the A339. It's 1.1 kilometres north of Kingsclere, approximately 1.2 kilometres east of Etchinswell, with the North Wessex Downs National Landscape located approximately 675 metres to the south of the application site. So on the site layout plan, it shows the use of the existing access to Stratton's Farm from the A339 for use as part of the proposed development to the east of the site. The application site is split into 3 parcels, as you can see, identified as 1, 2, 3 in a southerly manner. On the plan, it's identified as a proposed track to run from parcel 1 to parcel 3. These parcels are to provide for the shown access tracks and fencing to surround the respective parcels. The proposal includes 9 inverter transformer stations across the site. The site compound and substation are located to the north of Parcel 1, with woodland planting shown on the site layout plan to the southeastern and southern part of the site. The proposed underground cable, as you can see the red line extending to the east of the solar arrays in a southern manner. This is proposed to travel east of the A329 and travel south to a distance of in excess of 1 kilometre. This is the submitted landscaping strategy plan. It identifies some further details, including the public rights of way that are located within and adjacent to the site. These are highlighted in yellow. Sites of importance for nature conservation and ancient woodlands are located to the west and south of Parcel 3. This plan also shows some of the closest residential receptors to the proposed development. They're highlighted in the purple stars on the image on the screen. It also shows the proposed permissive path to connect footpath 75 to footpath 74 along the eastern boundary of the site. It also shows additional planting to the western boundary of Parcel 2 and planting to the southwestern boundary of Parcel 3. This plan shows the proposed buffers to the ancient woodland. The plans in front of you show the proposed solar PV panels, which have a maximum height of 2.95 metres, and the proposed inverters that are located throughout the site with a maximum height of 2.6 metres. This shows the proposed substation, which is located to the north of Parcel 1, as already mentioned. And here we have the proposed plans which show CCTV cameras and posts measuring a height of 3 metres, and proposed cable trenches are also included on this plan. The proposed parcels are to be enclosed with fencing shown on the attached plan, with acoustic fencing proposed around inverters in more sensitive locations. Just turning to the update paper. In the update paper we have the reference to the viewing panel, which was held on Friday the 1st of August. We also have some report updates and clarifications which refer to written ministerial statements, reference to a planning appeal that was submitted as part of the public representations, and comments in relation to ethical sourcing of panels in relation to modern slavery. Officers' comments are provided with each of these comments. We've updated comments from Nature Space provided. We've also had a representation from Councillor Minas Bound objecting to the proposal, which is outlined in full. We also have the applicant's response to these comments, and within this we have the officer's comments and position in relation to this. A further comment has been received from Etchinswell, Sidmington, Bishop's Green Parish Council, with officers' comments in relation to these included within the update. We also have received one additional public representation outlining some concerns and queries, with officers' comments again included within the update paper on this point. One further matter is in relation to pre-commencement conditions. These have been agreed in writing with the planning agent. Officers would also like to provide a verbal update to advise that, notwithstanding the section of the report that deals with flooding and drainage, it has been concluded that the sequential test is required, and officers confirm that this is met. Further, that the exception test is met for the reasons set out in the submitted flood risk assessment. Officers confirm that there is no change to the planning balance or the recommendation that planning permission be granted subject to section 106 and conditions. Therefore, the application is recommended for approval subject to the conditions and legal agreement outlined in the main paper.
Thank you very much. So our first speaker on this is Councillor Clive Mussett from Kingsclere Parish Council. If you'd like to approach the seats at the back there. Oh, can we turn the fan down, please? Thank you. You all have 4 minutes speaking time. If you press the silver button on the right of the microphone, you should have your microphone on.
Right, good evening. I'm Clive Mussett, Chair of Kingsclere Parish Council. Thank you for taking the time to visit the site. The application itself is not what it may seem at a casual glance. It is an industrial installation at scale in valued landscape for installation and operation and decommissioning. Valued landscape is valuable, and that should be a high bar, the starting point for any balanced assessment. It appears to be inadequate to the point of incomplete. The operation and decommissioning are major and material elements in themselves and have not been included with adequate detail within the application. The installation of power cables from the site to the substation will be a substantial cost to the local economy and schools. The A339 is a very busy, accident-prone, congested road. The decommissioning is not a technical, trivial matter. It is an expensive, logistical and time-consuming process with another cycle of cost to the local economy. A mere narrative assumption and planning condition is inadequate. We are fairly sure that there should have been an environmental impact assessment as an industrial installation to assess the cumulative effect. Other consultees have made that point. Land parcels 1, 2 and 3 are classed as valued landscape because the land has been determined as valuable. The public have a lot of access to this site and therefore imposing security fencing at scale is required. This will enclose large parcels of land at considerable visual and practical detriment. Other statutory consultees have raised material objections concerning a lack of enhancement, ineffective screening for the AONB and visual detriment, etc. Open countryside landscape will become enclosed as semi-urbanised land, not good for humans or wildlife. The application is counter to a lot of policy which we set out in our initial letter of objection, local plan, neighbourhood plan, national planning framework, etc., etc. The direction of travel for policy updates is in line with existing policy. The Borough Council, for example, declared a climate emergency, but the policy titled Climate Change and Air Quality Strategy appears to make no mention of ground-based solar renewables. The recent application at St Marybourne was refused. It has sufficient similarities to be referenced here.
You have 1 minute left.
You refused that application on balance and for policy reasons. If overall benefits are used to justify the scheme, then the same should be applied to the costs and impacts, not just selectively excluded as sitting outside of planning. That is not balanced. The application is not a sufficiently compelling and exceptional case that warrants setting aside a lot of policy and degrading precious, valuable landscape and the quality of access to it. A declared climate emergency does require a concerted effort, but a considered approach. There will be other applications on sites which may well, on balance, be suitable, but this is not one of them. Our objection remains and we would ask you please refuse the application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Councillor Mussett? No? Thank you very much for your time. Our next speakers are Mr. M. Openshaw and Mrs. S. Openshaw. If you'd like to approach the speaking. Thank you. Thank you. If you press the button, the right-hand silver button, that's it. So your microphone is on. You will have 4 minutes, and I'll remind you when you've got 1 minute left. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I commend the planning officer on distilling the 336 objection letters into 149 points. Listing objections alone is 20% of his report. These include justified planning issues, questioning the validity of the evidence in the planning balance, and the subsequent recommendation. However, for a proposal of this scale, there is a lack of transparency in his considerations. Some easy examples. In his explanation, the officer reiterates that prior to the public meeting, the applicant engaged with 2 parish councils and the ward councillors. However, both have denied this. Unverified and inaccurate statements render the report unsound. Distances relating to the proximity of the panels to Crookford Cottage are not correct. And the severe physical and mental health challenges of the disabled resident have been entirely dismissed. No reference has been made to the Equality Act 2010 or to the public sector equality duty. No one has even bothered to follow up on their submitted comments. Jessica at Crookford Cottage has rights, and these must be considered and addressed. The planning balance understates the impact and overstates the benefits. This application is a tiny drop in the energy picture, and this should be recognised. Qualifications relating to solar in the net zero and energy strategy policies have been ignored. The planning balance should assign weight based on verified and current information and should be applied impartially in both national and local interests. The temporary status is already a generational change and it's used to dismiss significant harms. But temporary is not secure because an extension is possible and decommissioning is not guaranteed. Without an absolute commitment to decommissioning, the facility is de facto permanent. Removing and recycling hundreds of tons of steel, solar panels and 3 kilometres of embedded corroded fencing will be massively expensive. There is no realistic provision for this to ensure it will or even can happen. Firstly, the legacy of an economic, environmental and ecological problem is being dumped on the next generation. Secondly, the reliance on the temporary status makes the current planning balance blatantly unsound. Basingstoke and Dean Council commit to lead by example in their climate change and air quality strategy. Their July 2025 plans discount ground-mounted solar. This committee should align with their own strategy and reject this 85-acre, highly disruptive industrial project on productive farmland because it causes undisputed significant harms. Must be about 3 minutes now, I guess.
Yes, there's 1 minute left.
Thank you. This area is one of our highest rated valued landscapes because of factors including its landscape and its public access. The NPPF is clear. Planning policies should protect and enhance valued landscapes. Basingstoke and Dean policies are clear. Low carbon resources can be permitted except where there are adverse impacts. The landscape officer is clear. The harms created cannot be effectively mitigated. Why waste taxpayers' money on a legal agreement which cannot address these issues? On the ground that this contravenes both national and Basingstoke and Dean's own policies, I ask the elected members to refuse this planning application.
Thank you very much. Do the committee have any questions for Mr. Openshaw? No? Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Our next speakers are Mr. Steve Boundy and Mr. James Stone. Are they here? Oh. Thank you. If you could confirm who you are, please. The microphone, if you press the right-hand silver button, it should have a little red light come on. That's it. Thank you. And you will have 4 minutes, and I will remind you when there's a minute left.
Thank you, Chair. So, Steve Boundy, Planning Agent. Chair, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak today in support of Stratton Solar Farm. The need for increased renewable energy generation is urgent and is within the context of declared national and local climate emergencies. The National Planning Policy Framework is clear that when determining applications for all forms of renewable energy developments, local planning authorities should not require applicants to demonstrate the overall need for renewable energy and should give significant weight to the benefits associated with renewable energy generation and the proposal's contribution to a net zero future. This proposal represents a meaningful step towards this cleaner, more secure energy future. If approved, Stratton Solar Farm is expected to generate over 24,000 megawatt hours of clean, renewable electricity every year. That's enough to meet the annual electrical needs of over 5,700 family homes. Beyond energy, the proposal also delivers a biodiversity net gain of nearly 44% for habitat units, 52% for hedgerows, and over 90% for watercourse units. New hedgerows, scrub, grassland and woodland will significantly enhance the ecological value of what is currently intensively managed farmland. Accordingly, no objections have been raised by the Council's ecologist. The application site lies within the North Wessex Downs National Character Area and near, but not within, the North Wessex Downs National Landscape. The applicant has taken great care to respect the rural setting of the site, and the planning officer concludes that the proposal will not compromise the National Landscape's statutory purpose of conserving and enhancing natural beauty. The report acknowledges some localised visual impact, particularly along public rights of way adjacent to Parcel 3, but these effects are limited in extent, affecting only short path sections, mitigated over time as native hedgerow planting matures, and balanced by wide areas that remain visually unaffected. With regards to the long-distance views from the North Wessex Down National Landscape, including Watership Down, which is some 2.6 kilometres from the site, due to the low magnitude of change in the vast extent of the national landscape and the intervening distance, the effects to the setting of the national landscape are considered to be negligible to minor adverse. Turning to land use, a full agricultural land classification survey confirms the site is entirely Grade 3B, not best and most versatile land. There is therefore no policy presumption against development, and the officer rightly concludes that the proposal complies with the relevant local and national policy. The scheme is also temporary and fully reversible. It will operate for 40 years, after which the land can return to its former condition, and during that time it will remain in agricultural use through grassland management and seasonal grazing, supporting both soil health and biodiversity. Critically, this development supports the rural economy, helping to diversify farm income and strengthen the viability of agriculture in a changing climate. The application site includes and is bordered by footpaths. The proposed development will retain all public rights of way in situ. No paths are diverted, closed or lost. Walkers, riders and the wider public will still be able to use every existing route during construction, operation and after decommissioning. A detailed construction traffic management plan has been submitted with safe working practices and access protection for these paths during the build phase. Whilst the development will not be visible from some parts of the right-of-way network, will be visible, mitigation and enhancement proposals include native hedgerow planting, providing natural screening, buffer zones, and the creation of a permissive path along the eastern boundary of parcels 2 and 3. This will provide a new circular walking route and enhance connectivity between existing footpaths. Construction access will use the existing farm entrance from the A339, which has been assessed by the Highways Authority as suitable. Other potential amenity impacts, such as those from glint and glare and noise, have been fully assessed as part of the application and found to be acceptable by technical expert consultees. Whilst there has been local objection to this development, there is also significant public support, including some 213 letters submitted in favour of the scheme. In conclusion, this is a low-impact, high-benefit proposal with a compelling environmental case which gives significant weight in favour of the scheme in the planning balance. It supports local priorities, national policy and global climate goals. We're grateful to officers for their professional and balanced assessment and the recommendation for approval, and respectfully ask that you support that recommendation this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do the committee have any questions? Councillor Miller and then Councillor Court.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your very rapid delivery there. Well done. You mentioned the North Wessex Down National Landscape. The MPPF quotes the setting of the national landscape has been, it's been, I think, in the MPPF update for about 3 years now. And having had a lot to do with the national landscape on behalf of this council, I believe you said that the impact in the setting would be minimal. Did you actually consult with the National Landscape Offices itself to see that that statement is correct?
That is the findings of the LVIA. In terms of consulting with the AONB, that would be a question possibly better directed at the case officer. So I think, as I say, that statement essentially comes from the assessment which concludes that whilst the closest point of the national landscape is some 600 metres south of the development, the key viewpoint is 2.5 kilometres away. And I think we will be able to cycle to that viewpoint shortly, and within that viewpoint, it is a fairly minor impact.
I will discuss this with the officers. Thank you. Chair, I'd like to raise an issue with you and also the legal team, because it's been mentioned by some speakers and noted in the report, various acts of parliament have been included. And I would ask legal to advise that if this committee made a decision one way or the other that any challenge would not be brought upon us because of those acts of parliament that are quoted in the paperwork.
Are you referring to the Equalities Act?
And the Human Rights Act, that's also mentioned in the paperwork.
Okay, thank you. We will get back to that when we come to officers' questions. Thank you. Councillor Court?
Chair. Couple of questions. Has any, you mentioned the route of the high voltage cable here, but has any consideration been given to alternative routing since this cable runs, I understand, the length of the A339 in its most, shall we say, narrow and tortuous route?
Yeah, so we did consider lots of different routes. So it's the basis of access and land agreements, environmental considerations, so proximity to trees and the like. And then any works within the highways will be subject of a Section 50 agreement with the Highways Authority. So with Hampshire County Council, they will dictate timescales, disruption and the like to make sure that the impacts of the installation of that cable are acceptable on the highways network.
Yes, certainly.
I think you may have misunderstood me. What I'm looking for is a response to it shouldn't actually be run down the highway. Is there an alternative route? Because running down the highway is going to be, from what I can see, is going to be a substantial amount of work and cause quite a lot of delay on the A339.
Our position would be no, that there is no alternative route.
Second question, Chair.
Certainly.
In the report, highways have mentioned about a limitation of 16.5 metres on turning circles to vehicles. I believe that's been referred for agreement, but I haven't seen any comment.
Yeah, so that is the largest construction vehicle required to access the site.
Do you have a supplementary? Go.
Thank you. And the final question, reference has been made to the limit on this proposal being 40 years. Now, in terms of what happens at the end of 40 years, who is responsible for taking it all away?
So the developer is responsible for taking it all away. Obviously, there's a planning condition that will require that at the end of 40 years, the site's planning status will return to greenfield land. There is a bond in place with the landowner to financially secure the removal of that equipment.
Just to clear that point, there's a bond in place with the landowner, so whatever happens at the end of 40 years, there is a responsibility in law to actually remove that, should you not wish to go ahead.
The bond secures it and gives certainty to the landowner. The requirement would be, from a planning perspective, to remove that equipment at the end of the expiry of the planning permission.
Thank you, that's fine.
Thank you. Do anyone else have any questions? Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
And the next speaker we have is Councillor Conquest. Thank you very much for coming. You will have 4 minutes and I will remind you when you have 1 minute left.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening. Tonight I'm speaking against this application and to ask you to balance the benefits versus the harms. Of course, we all support green energy, but we're in the position of having to make a trade-off between supporting one environmental policy at the expense of another. Tonight I'm here as a ward councillor, but I should also tell you that I'm also a member of Kingsclere Parish Council and live in the village. Like many of Kingsclere's residents, I enjoy the surrounding countryside, but we're not the only ones. Kingsclere welcomes many visitors attracted by Watership Down inside the nearby North Wessex Downs National Landscape and the village facilities. They use the many rambling and cycling routes into the village, such as through this site. At the moment, when these visitors approach Kingsclere, they have long views over rolling countryside, but that would soon change as this designated valued landscape is industrialised. At first by many months of construction, and then for 40 years with no views other than an industrial security fence as they go through the site. Hampshire Countryside Services objects to the application due to the detrimental impact on the public rights of way and its users. The landscape officer objects to the visual harm caused from elevated landscapes such as the national landscape. And visitors to the village will object to the industrialisation of the countryside, and if it deters them from returning, then it will impact the commercial well-being of the village. There is also a diverse range of wildlife in the area, some of which is mentioned in the report, such as great crested newts, but not all. There are also badgers and otters. But you might not know this because there has been no environmental impact assessment. We know there are otters because local residents believe they use the stream as a route from the River Enbourne to a commercial fish lake near the site. But with no EIA, we don't know for sure what is there. In fact, from the application, you would barely know there is a stream there at all. I'm sure you will remember well that in May this year, the full council overwhelmingly voted in support of the motion to protect the rights of rivers. The motion includes protecting the right of rivers to have native biodiversity. The motion reinforces policy EM4 of the local plan, which requires there to be no adverse impact on the conservation status of key species, including on our waterways. Without an EIA, we don't know the impact on our key species, such as the otters. The word otter does not appear anywhere in the report. In conclusion, please consider the harms that this industrialisation will inflict on the people of Kingsclere, the visitors enjoying the countryside, and to the wildlife in the area. Thank you.
Thank you. You finished with 1 minute left to go. Do we have any questions for Councillor Conquest? Councillor McCormick?
Thank you, Chair. In the papers, page 117, sections 8138 and 8139, it's stated that sites currently used for agricultural purposes, some of these activities ceasing will result in an increase in water quality due to the absence of agricultural pollutants such as fertilisers. Taking that into account, is it still your contention that this will have an adverse impact overall on the river, and if so, why?
Regarding the stream or the river, I was mainly concerned with the wildlife that it supports.
Do you have a supplementary?
No, I don't have a supplementary.
Thank you, Councillor McCormick. Any other questions? No? Thank you very much, Councillor Conquest. Okay, and that is all our public speakers, so now we can go to questions to officers. Councillor Hussey, Councillor Miller, Councillor McCormick.
In the email received today from the applicant's planning advisor, they talk about when determining planning application for all forms of renewable and low carbon energy developments, their associated infrastructure, local planning authorities should not require applicants to demonstrate the overall need. It goes on. They conclude with the statement which I'd like you to comment on. In that context, a refusal on the lack of need for the proposed development would not be a defensible position for the council.
Yes, so just referring to paragraph 168 of the MPPF, and as we just noted in the update, it's quite clear. It says, when determining planning applications for all forms of renewable and low carbon energy developments and their associated infrastructure, local planning authorities should not require applicants to demonstrate the overall need for renewable or low carbon energy and give significant weight to the benefits associated with renewable and low carbon energy generation and the proposal's contribution to a net zero future. So just in terms of the conclusion, and the update was, therefore, whilst the comments are noted from both Councillor Minusbound and the applicants in this instance. The overall need is not required to be provided as part of the planning process. Therefore, officers refer members to the main paper where there are no in-principle concerns to the matter of need having regard to the relevant policies.
Thank you. Do you have a supplementary? No. Thank you. Okay, Councillor McCormick next, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think I might have two, actually. The first one, it's mentioned in the papers that in respect of great crested newts, so protected species, that there's green, yellow and red areas of land. What's the overall conclusion that we can take from that? If part of it is red, does that mean we should treat it as red? Or do we have to apply some kind of formulae to work out what the overall rating is?
Thank you, Councillor. Well, yeah, in theory, there's different parts of the site of different allocations. So part of the site is within the red zone, which is the highest impact zone. So in terms of the actual assessment, Nature Space have been consulted, who provide the district licensing scheme, which provides the mitigation and the route forward in terms of impacts upon great crested newts. They've provided an updated Nature Space report, an updated impact plan, and the three relevant conditions to ensure that the impacts are within acceptable levels and the district licensing is applicable have been met. So that's essentially the assessment.
Thank you. Do you have a supplementary?
Yeah, well, should we be applying the derogation tests in that case to this application?
Yeah, the district licensing overrides the derogation test in this instance.
Did you have a second question, you said?
I did. I found out the answer to it anyway, but I was going to ask it anyway, which is how many acres of agricultural land do we have in the borough, hectares of agricultural land do we have in the borough?
Apologies, I'll just pull that up because I know it's on our Basingstoke website. Just 2 seconds, please.
Okay. Not quite seeing the relevance here. Can you fill me in, Councillor McCormick?
In the report, there's and in the policies, there's mention made of percentages of agricultural land that's above which we would not, we could justify not having solar panels.
I can clarify on that point. The borough covers over 63,000 hectares and 65.2% of the borough's agricultural land. Sorry, it's approximately 41,067 hectares, 65.2% of the borough.
Okay, thanks for that.
Any further questions?
No, that's it from me.
Thank you. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd like to refer to paragraph 8.74 in the report. It's to do with the setting of the national landscape. I'm going back to that topic again because I referred to the MPPF changed, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, I can't remember the exact timing, but that becomes a material consideration in any development. So I've got a sort of two-handed question. Is that 8.74 from the officers of this authority, or is it from the that discussion about the fact that it's a vast area, the national landscape, but this is only a tiny area, so it can be derogated in that respect, or did this come from the National Landscape Office itself?
Yes, so just go back, sorry, Councillor Miller, to your earlier question. The National Landscape Office were consulted on the application. We didn't receive any comments from the National Landscape Office. So we haven't received it. So that 8.74 is our consideration and conclusion in relation to that aspect of the scheme.
Thank you.
Do you have any other questions, Councillor Miller?
Other than the point I raised earlier on.
Yeah. Would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, to pick up the point you raised earlier, Councillor, you were talking about the public sector equality duty, yes? So under that, we've got, when making planning decisions, we have to consider the impact on people who've got protected characteristics, and I believe the characteristic referred to by the speaker was disabled persons. So your duty is to consider advancing equality of opportunity, fostering good relations, and eliminating discrimination. And that basically means working towards or minimising the effects so far as is possible on a disabled person, making sure that disabled people have the same opportunities as able-bodied people, and promoting good relations between disabled people and able-bodied people. In relation to the Human Rights Act, of course, we have to take our decisions in accordance with the Human Rights Act. I don't recall the speaker mentioning it, but I would guess that he was probably referring to Article 8, which protects the rights of people, respect for family life, home and correspondence, and planning decisions have to take account of those rights. Any planning decision needs to be proportionate, which means that in making the decision, the interference should be to achieve a legitimate reason, i.e. provision of solar energy, renewable energy, and that it's no more than is necessary to achieve that purpose.
Thank you. Do you have a supplementary?
Well, not a supplementary, but thank you very much, Anne, for that. The reason I raised the Human Rights Act, it's mentioned in the officer's comments in the update paper, and that was the reason that I included that in the same question, and I see that. It's just that when these kind of acts, especially in the climate we live in today, are mentioned, I think the members of this committee would like the reassurance you've just given. Thank you.
There is no guarantee, of course, that you don't get a challenge on any planning decision, but the issue is whether or not we can defend a challenge were it to be received. And I've heard nothing that gives me concern on either ground so far today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions for officers? Councillor Gaskill?
Thank you, Chairman. We've received this extra report today, and I've just been skimming through it. It refers to the NESO, National Energy System Operator, which is a newly established public body responsible for UK energy system planning. And if you look to the table which is in that report, it says that the south of England is only recommended 200 megawatts of energy. My first question is, first of all, is this something that Basingstoke and Dean are following? And the second question is, where are we with regards to 200? Because I think I've been in planning committees which have probably gone over that figure.
Thank you, Councillor. And just go back, that's kind of reverting back to Councillor Hussey's question at the start, is that those statistics and the comments have been rebutted to an extent by the applicant here. And those stats, as per their submission, is for the transmission connected projects in the region, as opposed to distribution connected projects, which this scheme falls under, which has a much higher need and threshold. Regardless of that point, I just want to come to the conclusion on that the MPPF is very clear that the policy requirements do not require the need to be provided as part of the planning process under the MPPF. So from that perspective, the principle is considered to be acceptable. So whilst this information obviously has come in quite late in the day, from what the applicant has said, it does appear that the reference referred to a different type of connection. But the need element isn't required under paragraph 168 of the MPPF in any event.
Do you have a supplementary?
Well, my second question was that how much solar energy have we've sort of given planning permission for in the last sort of five years or so?
I don't have the exact figure in terms of that to hand. However, we did have a cumulative impacts assessment within the report. If I just have a quick reference to that in terms of which will give a ballpark. That was mainly in consideration to landscape adverse impacts in terms of clustering and proximity of these together. But I'll just refer to the paragraph. 2 seconds, please. just refer to paragraph 8.81 in the report. This identifies, I believe, over the last, I mean, it's far in excess of 5 years, probably over the past 10 to 15 years at least. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that have either been granted permission or allowed upon appeal, and these are a 5 megawatt site, a 12 megawatt site, a 2.8 megawatt site, a 4.23 megawatt site, a 3.4 megawatt site, and a 45 megawatt site. And there are currently 2 other applications under consideration by the council.
I think I need to challenge that, because I know I think we've put 2 in Silchester and Bramley, which are both 48 megawatts. We've put 1 in Preston Candover, which was 28 megawatts. So I think you've got 0 wrong on those.
The Bramley one I've noted as 45 megawatts, but just going back to the original point, in terms of need, under paragraph 168, the need is not required to be submitted as part of the application.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Hussey?
I'm getting confused by some of the councillors' questions and the answers, because the answers and the questions to me don't seem to match up exactly, so maybe I misunderstood. So I would like some clarification. In the update paper, a lot of the statistics are those provided by an objection from a councillor. But they're all figures which relate to, and I've got to find the sentence now, for transmission connected projects. And the applicant very clearly states that this application is not for transmission connected projects. It's for distribution connected projects, which is quite different. So the examples of what we've seen around the borough, I don't know if those figures relate to distribution or to transmission. And I think people are getting, if they're not getting them confused, I certainly am.
I take the point. Again, trying to circle back to the point is that this application is as per the applicant's submission for a distribution connected project. There is no requirement under paragraph 168 of the MPPF for that need to be demonstrated as part of the planning process. So this, but that is very clear.
Excuse me, officer, that's dodging what I asked. Yes. That's circumnavigating. The question is in the middle.
Sorry, something else tried to avoid it. Could you just clarify on the question, Councillor Hussey, please?
I want to know.
Thank you, Chair.
I'm requesting deferment until we have a proper briefing on this topic.
Sorry, if I could answer the question Councillor Hussey posed in the first instance. Officers certainly weren't trying to dodge it. I think the fact is the question you asked isn't relevant to the consideration of the application this evening. You have an application in front of you for a solar farm. Whether or not there are competing sets of information in the update paper, Councillor Hussey, it isn't actually relevant to the decision. So it's not material, it's not something you need to take account of.
Would you like to say anything else, Councillor Hussey?
That statement has been made very clearly earlier on in the meeting, and yet questions are still coming in, referring to the statistics in the update paper. If we don't need to take heed of them, why are we being confused by all the information and statistics in the update paper? It's like confetti hitting the fan, as far as I'm concerned.
If I may, Chair, I empathise with you, Councillor Hussey. The fact is that we have to present to you all of the information that anybody presents to the planning authority prior to a decision being made. So whether or not that information is relevant, we are obliged to present it to you. Now, we can then only advise you as to whether or not it's material to your decision. But as I said, I do sympathise that there is competing information and we continue to have questions about things that are not material to the decision this evening.
Thank you. Councillor Hussey, would you like to reply to that? Okay. Councillor Court?
If I could ask a different question. In terms of the conclusion, 886, the views of the landscape officer are noted and reported above, of seen and in detail. The proposed scheme has been designed to include landscape mitigation, and what is being said is the mitigation is sufficient to take us from, in this case, harm to the local landscape to, I think your words were minor. And that includes, well, I'm not sure how this works. That includes insisting that this scheme would be dismantled after 40 years irrespective. Is that correct?
That's what the consideration has been given to, so that'll be a 40-year project.
So can I just clear on that one? If the developer or applicant would come back and say, we want to keep this, can we carry on? Would the answer be no?
It would have to be a separate application. We couldn't comment on the hypothetical at the moment.
That's fine, Chair, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for officers? Councillor McCormick.
Just really a question on point of procedure. If individual members of the committee are uncomfortable at making a decision tonight and might require more time to arrive at an informed decision, is it within the legal scope of this committee to request a deferral?
Sorry, Councillor, I didn't really understand that question. Why do you think members need to defer the matter?
Well, if they don't feel that they can make an informed decision, but given time they could make an informed decision.
Well, I think, Councillor, they'd have to identify what information they thought they were lacking so that officers could provide that information in order to enable them to make a decision at a future date. But I haven't heard that anything is missing at the moment.
Are there any other questions for officers?
I've just heard someone say EIA in my ear. Was that environmental impact assessment? Would that be?
Chair, if I might assist the committee, this is obviously set out in the officer report that's in front of you. The council had a request for a screening opinion as to whether the proposal constituted EIA development, and the decision that was issued by this council was that it did not require an environmental impact assessment, and that's set out in the officer report.
Any other questions?
I wonder if I could just ask to clarify whereabouts in the report that the statement is made that there's no environmental impact assessment required. I didn't come across it.
Yes, Councillor Court, if you look at page 89 of your agenda, paragraphs 8.3 and 8.4 of the papers set out the basis on which it was screened and the conclusion that it doesn't exceed the threshold set out for requiring EIA and will be unlikely to have significant effects by virtue of the size, scale and characteristics of the development. An environmental statement was therefore not required.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, if there are no other questions for officers, we will move to debate. Who would like to start us off? Councillor Miller.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, I'm just going back to the conclusion. I'm going to go back to the North Wessex Down landscape and paragraph 8.74. It is considered, I'm going to read it just to make the point. Elements, it is considered that the proposed development would result in incongruous elements in this landscape setting. However, due to the low magnitude of change in the vast extent of the national landscape and the intervening distance, which is 675 metres, we've been told, the effects of the setting in the national landscape are considered to be negligible to minor adverse. If you compare that this is 675 metres away, I know the national landscape goes from just about where this site is all the way over to the other side of Swindon. Yes, we can see that there's an awful lot of national landscape, and this is a minor glitch. If this argument was put forward by officers for any development and then catered in the setting of the whole national landscape, we'd have it surrounded by various sites of whatever planning. So I'm not happy with that statement. It's a shame that the planning officer from National Landscape didn't respond. Having worked with the National Landscape on behalf of this council for about 5 years, I know why. But that really does make me very uncomfortable, because it's eating into the principle that's set out in the MPPF about the setting of national landscapes. It's valuable. They changed it from in the national landscape areas to the setting of, because that's critical. So I'm very unhappy with that. I go back to the EIA, and I just quickly scanned through that paragraph. Thank you very much, Jenny, for mentioning that. And but there seems to be an awful lot of environmental impacts that have been mentioned by the local ward councillor, by the parish council, and all the way through here about various ecological aspects of this and impacts of this particular industrial is being quoted, and I think we can all consider that to be industrial. That I think an EIA, and notwithstanding it didn't meet certain criteria, would be an essential part of us coming to and covering all aspects of the landscape, of the biodiversity around, to give us better information to make a decision on this tonight. That's my statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. Is there anybody else that would like to comment? Councillor Gaskell?
Yeah, I'm a little confused on these figures and whether we should be looking at these figures. 200 megawatts, I think we've far exceeded that in the past, and it may just be a recommendation. If that's the case, then we need clarification on that. I don't feel comfortable adding another solar farm in a place of outstanding natural beauty when we've already got adequate allowance for what we're supposed to have done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gaskell. Councillor McCormick, and then Councillor Oborne.
Thank you, Chair. I'll choose my words carefully at this point. I came into this meeting ever so slightly predisposed, having read the papers and seen various submissions, that because this wasn't part of the national landscape, we probably wouldn't be able to refuse it. However, the submissions tonight have made me think again, not least when we have conflicting information and councillors that are uncomfortable with that. What do we do? Do we err on the side of caution and not make the application go ahead, refuse it? And if so, what grounds can we refuse it on? So I'm not moving refuse at this point in time. I would like to have the opportunity to hear what other committee members have to say on this matter, because I think this is a very difficult decision we have to make tonight.
Thank you. Councillor Oborne.
Okay, this is more of a clarification. There was some concern about the meaning of transmission and distribution connected. So let me clarify, I have some knowledge of this industry. Transmission connected in simple terms means connected to the national grid's network. Distribution means, in our terms, connected to SSEN's network. The solar farms in our area to date, I'm certainly know about most of them, are all distribution connected. So the number in that report that refers to transmission connected is not relevant. We don't have any.
Thank you, Councillor. That's very useful. Anybody else? Councillor Hussey.
I went on the site visit along with fellow councillors, and we had the meeting afterwards, discussing, asking questions on the evidence that we'd seen and on the paper. And then suddenly, since that debriefing of the site visit, a lot more information has come when we presented it to us. And we're told a lot of that is not relevant to us. But when a respected councillor comes up with statistics which would appear to be persuasive at first glance, and then the applicant comes up with a different view, regardless of whether we can ignore because we don't have to consider need, that leads to confusion. It's quite clear that some of us would like to have a better understanding of this application in other detail to what we've had already, and to be able to ask questions which sometimes the officers may have to go away to come back with answers. This is not the place to do it.
Is that a proposal for deferral? Thank you. And can you give a reason? Just for the record, please.
Confusion in the information as presented.
I think you should give Jenny a chance to come back in.
Okay, yeah. Would you like to?
Yes. In terms of a motion for deferral, we would need to know as an officer team what exactly it is as a committee that you don't know or have access to, or additional information that you think you require for us to bring back to the next committee. Because, you know, I hear it, I understand, but we can't just go away and present you with the same report again next time round with nothing additional added to it. So if we do need more detail, I mean, I hear things like we're uncomfortable, it's a difficult decision. I'm afraid, yes, it is a difficult decision. I think there's nothing that we can add to the report as officers to assist in that. But in terms of environmental impact assessment that's been raised, as I explained to you, we said it didn't require an environmental impact assessment. And in fact, I would say that's confirmed by all the comments we've received from consultees, because not one of them said this scheme is going to have a significant effect, which is the test for an environmental impact assessment. But we do have a lot of the supporting documents that you would normally have if you have an environmental impact assessment. So all the protected species information and flooding and what have you, those are things that you would have. The landscape visual impact assessment clearly is key, as you've said, and from the site visit. So I suppose I'm just imploring you to give us more so that we know how we can best help you if this is deferred.
Councillor Court?
What if I just be clear on the EIA development you've just mentioned? Here it's made a very broad statement. The development was determined not to exceed thresholds set out within the 2017 regulations for acquiring EIA, but it doesn't say in respect of what. There are quite a few particular aspects to the EIA, and it's not clear as to what is covered and what is not.
Chair, I think the decision not to require an EIA was made by officers under delegated decision. You can't reopen that issue now. An environmental impact assessment was not required in connection with this application. There's no going back on that.
Chair, if I might, may I just ask what factors were taken into account in the EIA? Is that a reasonable question?
Yeah, so, sorry, in terms of what we consider, the environmental impact assessment regulations have either what are called Schedule 1 projects or Schedule 2 projects. Schedule 1 projects have to have an environmental impact assessment made against them, and there's various different types of projects and different thresholds. And the Schedule 2 projects are more for the council to consider whether there are likely to be significant effects on the environment arising from that project, but there are thresholds that would give you an indication as to whether, if it hits that threshold, it might have an impact. The thresholds weren't met on this occasion, weren't exceeded, and also it was our professional assessment, it was unlikely to give rise to significant effects in terms of environmental impacts, with regard to the regulations. And as I said, we consult people, so we consult Natural England and other consultees as part of that process. They respond to us, so we would take their advice. And then when the planning application itself comes in, we do get another opportunity as a planning authority to consider whether that assessment that was made at that point was the right assessment. Obviously, which we do, that's why it's set out in the report for you. I suppose what I was trying to draw on was that none of the consultees then said, well, hang on, this scheme does have a significant effect. So although the landscape officer has clearly set out in the report that there are concerns about landscape impacts, they're all sort of moderate, minor, adverse impacts. They're not significant impacts, which would be the threshold for an environmental impact assessment. But what I was trying to explain was, nevertheless, we still have a landscape visual impact assessment of the scheme. So we still have the opportunity to consider its impact on the landscape and consider yourselves as a committee whether you think that's a harmful impact. The fact we haven't screened it in and required an environmental impact assessment doesn't take that away from you. I hope that makes sense.
But we still have no reason as to what it is that he wants if it's brought back to committee. What is missing in terms of information?
Right. Okay, so Councillor Hussey, you have made a motion for deferral, but we do need a reason before we can proceed with the motion.
I think, Chair, what we need to know is what Councillor Hussey expects officers to bring back to the next meeting that they haven't got now in order to enable them to take the decision.
I wasn't asking for that at all. I was asking for a deferment so we could have a round-the-table chat and talk in much more detail. We're meant to have a new formula for development control where we ask less questions in the meeting. We're supposed to ask them prior. Because of the complexities here, the only answer we got to the additional information is ignore it. It's not relevant. We want to be able to make informed decisions. We don't always follow the advice we're given by officers, hence why we sometimes give opposite judgments to the one that they've given. In this case, I came in thinking that I'm supposed to favour the application unless there are significant planning reasons to go against, to refuse the planning application. It's all about tilted balance. At the present, all officers are doing are pushing the tilt for me in the wrong direction. That's what you're doing. Now, if I can't answer the legal question, That's tough. But
think-
I believe you're pushing this application away from your own recommendation.
I think, Councillor, what you're saying is that you find this application so complex that you need further time to consider it?
No.
No?
Complex for information that's come to light since the paper was published and since we had time to question officers in detail. Late information. That's
So
the-
you feel that you need extra time to consider it?
Councillor Johnston, and then Councillor Jones.
I'd like to concur with Councillor Miller about the environmental impact assessment, and I think that the papers that we've got in front of us are riddled with words like unlikely, unknown. That's not really good enough when talking about bats and things like skylarks. So unlikely, unknown, potential, those are the sorts of things that environmental impact assessments would actually describe and assess. Skylarks, for instance, can't just be resighted. It can take up to 10 years for a skylark population to naturally move. My concern, I totally concur with Councillor Miller, is that perhaps for me, there's not enough information there for me to be able to, to go along with the recommendation. It fills me with great concern. I've read absolutely everything. It's taken me 5 days, and I'm afraid that's where I'm sitting. And what I've heard this evening hasn't helped move me in the other direction.
So
thank
what
you.
information do you feel you would need at this point?
Well, it's about, I'm not comfortable making a decision to support this when words such as unknown are in there, or unknown potential. All of this, it's not enough detail. The recommendations put forward and the assurances put forward aren't enough for me. But, I'm just coming into this relatively new as a sub, but looking at the language in the report, it fills me with unease. So,
Can we defer? I think going with the time, can we say something like the not enough time to... No.
for a further briefing. Yeah, further briefing. Yeah. Technical detail.
Chair, I wonder if the solution is to take the proposal for deferral on the basis that members require a further briefing with further time to question officers, and then we'll bring it back to the next meeting. Does that sound... Is there a seconder then?
Councillor Court?
I'm happy to second that proposal. Thank you.
Okay, so we have an active proposal for deferment on the grounds that we need more time for briefing. We feel we need more of a briefing because we have a lot of questions. Okay, so we are voting on the motion for deferral. Those in favour of deferring? I think that's unanimous. Okay, thank you very much. Can we have an officer read that? Do we need someone to read that decision? How do we work this out?
I don't know how it works. Can the chair just say it's been deferred?
Yeah, just say deferred.
Okay, thank you. That item has been deferred so that we can have a better brief. Councillor Jones, did you want to say something before we move on?
When we are briefed or have this briefing opportunity, the paragraph, the section 10.4 talks about the benefit of the system, and it talks about approximately 5,791. I'd be quite interested to see the algorithm that renders those numbers. So if that could be included in the briefing, I'd be grateful.
Good luck with that.
So now we will move on to item 2. We have no speakers for this item. Would the officer like to introduce, my mistake, would the officer please like to introduce the item? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. So this application is for the site of the Royal Oak Public House at Hyde's Platt in Etchingswell. The application before you this evening is for extension and alterations to the public house. So these comprise a two-storey side extension and a single-storey front extension, and that is to increase the capacity within the public house itself, which will include the provision of some guest accommodation, new storage and a large restaurant space. In addition, there are some works to the grounds itself. So there's a car park extension to increase the number of parking spaces and the reconfiguration of the garden to also provide a single-storey outbuilding. If I bring members' attention to the update paper, this site was subject to a viewing panel last week where members viewed the site. And in the update paper, we also have an additional comment from the applicant about conditions, but the conditions within your agenda have been agreed. The application before you this evening is recommended for approval, subject to the conditions listed within the agenda. Many thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, as I said, we have no speakers on this item, so do we have any questions for officers? Anybody? No? Fantastic. Who would like to start the debate on this one? Councillor Miller and then Councillor McCormick.
Thank you very much. I noticed that Councillor Isaac is one of the ward members. He was not able to go along tonight. But just to say that he's been working with the local community on this particular aspect of getting this pub back into, or to improve the capability of the pub, which we saw on our viewing panel, which is very illustrative, I think, for all of us that were there on Friday. The parish council's in support of this as well, and it's, I think, welcome to see that we have a rural facility as the Royal Oak being improved in, as is described in the application. It brings life to the local village. It brings life to a pub which is going contrary to what's happening in the rest of the country. I understand the figures are around about 100 a month closing. I might be slightly out on that one. But having walked around and being shown what was being intended to be achieved through this application to the pub, I think it's heartening to see that somebody is taking the time, effort and resources to put into it. And for want of anybody else who wants to speak in debate, I'm quite happy to move the officer's recommendation on this.
Thank you very much, Councillor Miller. Councillor McCormick, did you wish to speak?
Yeah, I'm quite happy after I've seconded it to give other people the opportunity to speak. I think having been out there and visited the site, it was fairly self-evident what the issues were with the current limitations with pub, and we would not have known that until we visited on the viewing. Something like 40% of all pubs have shut in the last 20 years. That is not essentially a material consideration for planning, but what is that we have a pub that needs some critical upgrades to the building. Therefore, it is going in front of our committee, and having seen the site and seeing what they want to do, I'm more than happy to second it. And maybe Councillor Isaac would have joined us if the pub had been open.
Councillor Court, did you wish to say something?
Just, it's already been said. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else? We have a proposal on the table and seconded for approval as per the order paper. Can we have a vote, please? All those in favour? Unanimous again. Thank you very much. Now we move on to item 3. If we could have the officer to introduce the item, please.
Thank you, Chair. So the third item before you this evening is Cufford Lane, Bramley, Hampshire. So it can be found in the agenda paper under item 3. The proposal is for the erection of a tractor shed on site and change of use of land from agricultural to residential. So if I take members' attention to the update paper, there's no updates on this and it wasn't subject to the viewings that took place last Friday. So the application is recommended for approval subject to a number of conditions set out within pages 200 to 225 of the agenda. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. So we have one speaker, Holly Goulding. If you'd like to approach the speaking positions. So if you press the silver button on your right, on the right of the microphone, that should light up a little red light. There we go. And you have 4 minutes, and I'll advise you when you've got 1 minute left. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening. This application seeks the erection of a tractor shed and the change of use of land from agricultural to residential. I note the concerns of local residents and welcome the opportunity to discuss these with you this evening. The proposal supports the ongoing maintenance of over 2 hectares of agricultural land owned by the applicant. The proposed tractor shed is both proportionate and necessary for the storage of essential agricultural equipment used to manage the land, including hay production for the applicant's horses. The size and functionality of the building is entirely consistent with what is commonly expected for agricultural support in rural areas and clearly aligns with local plan policy EP4. The change of use to residential garden land reflects the natural evolution of the property's boundary over time, bringing clarity to land use designations to ensure appropriate future land management. Turning to design and visual impact, local policies such as EM1 and D2 are clear in requiring proposals to be sympathetic to their surroundings. The design of the agricultural building has been carefully considered to blend with the local rural character according with these policy aspirations. Whilst the building will be visible from Cufford Lane, its agricultural form and appearance are appropriate and not out of keeping with the agricultural landscape. The officer's report further acknowledges that any visual harm is minor and outweighed by the utility and rural character of the proposal. Crucially, the development does not harmfully impact the openness of the strategic gap. Concerns about biodiversity have been addressed comprehensively throughout the course of the application, and following feedback from the biodiversity officer, the ecological assessments were updated to consider protected species, including both great crested newts and toads. The conclusion is that there is no adverse impact on wildlife, a view shared by the Council's biodiversity team. Associated ecology conditions are proposed to be attached in the event of grant of planning permission to control these measures. The proposal goes one step further, delivering measurable biodiversity net gains and exceeding local policy expectations. Furthermore, the proposal utilises an existing hard-standing patch, and as such, no trees will be lost as part of the development, with all proposed works being outside of designated root protection areas. With respect to neighbouring properties, the location of the proposed agricultural building is sited a considerable distance from residential dwellings, ensuring no loss of privacy, overlooking, or noise impacts. Similarly, the residential garden remains within a well-established rural context and does not affect adjacent amenity. In terms of transport, the Council's highways team raised no objection, and the proposal results in no intensification of traffic, with access arrangements remaining as existing. This allows for agricultural traffic
You have 1 minute left.
To be removed from the highway network and remain securely stationed on site. In summary, the proposal seeks for a modest agricultural building to facilitate the maintenance of agricultural land and an extension to the rear garden. The proposal is demonstrated to align with both local and national policy. It supports appropriate rural land management, delivers a biodiversity net gain, and has no detrimental impacts upon local wildlife, protecting both neighbouring amenity and local highway network. I would like to conclude by thanking officers for their hard work throughout the application, and thank you for their report this evening. I hope the committee is reassured by these comments. The proposed scheme will ensure that land remains agriculturally sound, with the barn providing the necessary facilities and equipment for its effective maintenance. I therefore request that you support your officer's recommendation. Thank you.
That's perfect, just about on the button. Do we have any questions for Holly Goulding? Councillor Jones?
Yeah, I don't know whether we can bring up the aerial view for 2024. Yeah, that one, the right-hand one. The container there, will that, or will the contents of that be accommodated in the new structure, or will that remain?
Correct. It's the intention for all kind of agricultural equipment to be contained within the new building proposed. In any case, storage containers do benefit from permitted development rights.
Councillor McCormick?
So we're asked to grant planning permission tonight for a tractor shed, but you want the land use changed from agricultural to residential. So why would I need a tractor shed if I'm not going to have a tractor on the land?
The parcel of land to be changed is very small. You can see in this application here, it's the hashed area. The rest of the land to the north of this hashed area continues to be agricultural. That is what is being maintained through the provision of this tractor shed.
No
You
further
have
questions.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
So we have no other speakers. Do we have any questions for officers? Councillor Miller?
Thank you, Chairman. The Parish Council have asked for the permitted development rights to be withdrawn from this application for future use. I had a look in the conditions. I didn't see anything mentioned about it. Has that been considered by officers?
Yes, so that's in the report within point 8.56 or paragraph 8.56. So it wasn't considered to meet the test.
Yeah, I can barely hear you. I'm sorry.
Sorry, it's in paragraph 8.56 of the report. It has been considered.
Thank you.
Councillor McCormick?
So if planning permission were granted tonight and that tractor shed's put up, what can then stop that being turned into residential accommodation later on?
So it would either need a planning application or a prior approval application. So it's a change of use and it would need to be considered under an application.
But with change of uses tonight, what we're saying is a subsequent planning application would then have to be considered its own merits because it was going to have windows put in it and changes to the exterior to make it residential.
Yes, yeah.
Councillor Miller?
Just to be clear, that's not covered under permitted development. That's a rhetorical question, by the way.
Sorry. So no, there's a prior approval process. Yeah, so an application would need to be submitted. It can't just be carried out. Is that what your question? Sorry.
Yeah, the point is permitted development rights. You can do certain things, and what was suggested was windows and maybe a door, and then sort of migrating into some form of accommodation. That does not come under permitted development rights. Am I correct?
No, so it would need prior approval from the council. An application would have to be submitted.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for officers? No? Okay, we will move to debate then, please. Anybody want to start this off? Councillor Hussey and then Councillor Miller.
Move the recommendation.
Okay.
Seconded.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have a motion for approval and seconded. Who is in favour of approving this application? Excellent. I think that's unanimous again. Thank you very much. Can we have the officer to... read the...
Thank you, Chair. So to confirm that application is approved subject to the conditions in the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, and now that is all the applications for planning. We do have a further item, a tree protection order. Is that correct? Read it. A quick change of personnel there.
Chair, you're missing a councillor.
Oh, can someone go and grab Councillor Oborne for me? Okay, just wait for Councillor Oborne to come back in. If we can find him, he's run away. Gone for a Maggie D.
It's actually an application for works to a tree.
Oh, it's works for a tree. Okay. Yes. Right, I'll clarify once we get Councillor Oborne back, wherever he's gone. At least we found out where he came from. Apologies for the delay. We are awaiting, one of our councillors had to leave the room because he had a conflict of interest with the last application. So we are just trying to bring him back to the committee so we can carry on. Maybe he thought it was that. Oh no, here he comes. Here comes Bernie. There he is. Right. Okay, now that we have Councillor Oborne, just a quick clarification. This is an application for works to a protected tree. So if we could have the officer introduction, please.
Thank you, Chair. This application relates to works to a tree protected by a tree preservation order at Ashley Lodge in Fresco Crescent. The proposal seeks consent for the felling and replacement of one copper beech tree and has been supported by a tree structural integrity report prepared by Bartlett Consultants, which has incorporated diagnostic results that revealed extensive internal decay, dysfunction at the graft union, and multiple structural deficiencies that elevate risk and clearly demonstrate that the tree is in a terminal state of decline. Therefore, despite the tree's relatively low tree risk assessment qualification score, the Council supports the applicant's view that this particular specimen has reached the end of its viable life. Remedial pruning is not viable under the British Standard recommendations for tree work and would further compromise the tree's health and amenity value. Therefore, the officer's recommendation is to approve the application with a condition for replacement planting to ensure continuity of visual amenity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we have Mr. D. Robinson to speak, please. Take your time. Thank you, Mr. Robinson. If you'd like to press the silver button on the right of the microphone, you should have a little red, perfect. You will have 4 minutes, and I will remind you when you've got a minute left. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to speak. As members are aware, this tree is over 100 years old. It is the only one of its kind in the North Hampshire, and its leaves, although there's none on there, are a lovely colour. The Housing Association commissioned a survey of the tree to be undertaken earlier this year. A tree surgeon undertook a detailed survey. The recommendation was to cut the tree down to ground level, presumably erring on the side of caution, even though the report did not mention it was dangerous. Members may be worried about the footpath in the report, and this footpath was constructed adjacent to the open space when the small housing estate was built in the 70s. The Borough Council sold this open space to the Housing Association 30 years ago and allowed it to build 2 blocks of 2-storey flats. The tree is between the flats and the footpath. Never has the tree stability come into question. In the last 10 years it has been pruned back from the building, but never thought to be dangerous. Many residents in the area have objected to the planning application, which in my opinion is justified as there is no ground movement. I am not as qualified as the tree surgeon, but I do know a little bit about trees. I was the council's officer who, together with my staff, were responsible for the care and maintenance of thousands of trees on Borough Council land. It is a shame that this beech has been recommended to be cut to ground level just to appease 3 or 4 residents who complain about the shade and lack of light. In my opinion, a more reasonable solution would be for the tree officer to be instructed to keep a regular eye on the beech, and the officer could refer back to the committee if necessary, especially as it's not reckoned to be dangerous, most unlikely to fall on the footpath, and has taken 6 months to reach this committee. Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to speak.
Thank you for attending the committee. Do the committee have any questions for Mr. Robinson? Councillor McCormick?
Thank you, Chair. Is the tree still alive?
The tree is still alive because you could see the leaves on it. It's still alive. It's been grafted, as you can see on the bottom, and there it is there with leaves on, so it's still alive. She's over 100 years old, so she is a little bit thin on the top, but there you can see where it's been grafted.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions for Mr. Robinson? No? Thank you for taking the time to attend this committee.
Thank you.
Okay, so do we have any questions for officers? You can stay where you are, it's fine. Or could you turn your microphone off for me, please?
On?
Could you turn your microphone off for me, please? Just press the silver button again. Perfect, thank you. Councillor Hussey.
Just looking quickly at the report, there was a 5-day notice supported by a tree structural integrity report to remove the subject tree under the dead and dangerous exemption provisions. This notice was refused following an officer assessment, because they didn't consider the tree to be dead or imminently dangerous. But then they send in an application, and suddenly it seems that we agreed with the structural report sent in. I don't understand how we've changed our position. What am I missing?
So the exemption under the planning legislation is very strict. Unless a tree is imminently dangerous, as in it's at risk of immediate collapse, or it is dead, it would not, as well as some other exemptions, it would not come under that exemption. We cannot authorise that under that exemption. That doesn't necessarily mean that we would refuse an application. We did refuse that 5-day notice, and we advised the applicant to submit a full application with supporting documentation.
Thank you. Councillor Miller, and then Councillor
Who was
Court.
the applicant?
For the 5-day notice, councillor?
Yeah.
That was a tree surgeon.
Yeah, okay, Chair. A tree surgeon doesn't put in for a tree on his own. He does it on behalf of somebody.
Oh, sorry, you mean the applicant?
The applicant,
The applicant.
that was the question.
The applicant, I believe it was a housing association of some kind. I'm afraid I can't remember at the minute.
Okay, that's good enough. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Councillor Court.
I'm just trying to get to the bottom of this in my own mind. Either this tree, from what I'm seeing, this tree is still doing pretty well. It's getting old. We all do. Bits fall off, I suppose, will happen to us as well. But it's still going. And now someone's saying to me they want to cut it down. Is it actually that dangerous that it's going to fall over tomorrow or cause other problems? What is the trouble with this tree?
So that we cannot predict, and that's absolutely a valid question, which is why they've had a structural integrity report. So they've had a number of tests done, one of which is the track test. They've also had some intrusive wood resistance testing, which has shown that, in very simple terms, half of that wood is sound and half of it is not. Whilst the track rating is very much a baseline assessment in which you can, it's a very small part of an overall assessment, so it's a good thing to include, but there are many other issues that combined, there are other structural deficiencies. The tree has co-dominant stems, there is included bark there, which can cause internal cracking. There is dysfunction along the cambium, which means that when the cells differentiate, essentially it cannot sustain itself in terms of nutrients and water, which is why there is dieback in the crown. Essentially, the tree is in terminal decline, and it will not recover, and by refusing it, we are delaying the inevitable. And the real concern also is because of these structural deficiencies, it is absolutely at increased risk as well during an adverse weather event. So there is a degree of risk there.
Just to clarify, so what we're saying is here, the tree has got old, as I see it, and there is a chance that one day a big storm will come along and knock it down and it might fall across the buildings. Is that what the concern's about?
No, age has nothing to do with it, councillor. It's to do with the problems that the tree has. Physiologically, it is in a state of decline. The test results show that. But although the track result is low, in combination with those other assessments, the tree is not going to recover. We would be just delaying the inevitable. I don't feel we have grounds to refuse that.
Councillor Hussey.
I didn't fully understand a lot of your technical description about the testing of the tree. So, in the report it says there's decay throughout, and you talk about intrusive testing. Does that mean that you've looked inside the tree to the core and found decay that we can't see with the naked eye?
That's correct. So with there's something called a resistograph test, which essentially is a very, very, very thin drill, and what it does is it measures resistance through the wood, and you get a graph. That's something that's one of the tests that they carried out, and from that result in very simple terms, it did show us that there is extensive decay on two sides, 50% of which is sound and 50% which isn't.
So does that mean that we cannot be certain about the safety of the tree?
Precisely that, Councillor.
And
yeah.
how long useful life it's got left before it comes down? We can't be certain.
The safe, what we term as safe useful life expectancy, is undoubtedly limited.
Right.
Hence why I think we would be delaying the inevitable. And absolutely, whilst again that the track risk rating is score is low, yes, you cannot predict the failure, and that is one of the main issues.
Councillor Court and then Councillor Jones, please.
Notice in the report, it's talked about appropriate application of a replacement planting condition. What have we got in mind here?
So the applicant has already made a recommendation. It's under section 12, councillor. So it's recommended to replace one of the same standard, an extra heavy.
Councillor Jones?
Yeah, I think beeches are typically shallow-rooted. I guess if this one falls, it'll either hit the buildings or hit the cars. Is there any sign of heave at the moment in the grotto?
I must confess, councillor, I've not viewed this tree. This case was of a previous officer who's no longer with us. As far as I'm aware, no, there's nothing to suggest that in either the officer's report or the professional report. So, no, as far as we're aware.
Okay. Any further questions for officers? No? Okay, who wants to start the debate for me? Councillor Miller?
Thank you, Chair. Bearing in mind the response from the officers and the explanations we've been given tonight, I'll support the officers' recommendation on this one, and I'm very heartened by the fact the recommendation at the end for the replanting is to go ahead, because I would I wouldn't countenance this if there wasn't a replanting condition. But officers' recommendation.
Thank you, councillor. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Councillor Court?
Thank you, Chair. I'll just second Councillor Miller's.
Thank you. Excuse me. Okay, we will put that to the vote then. We have a motion for approval, much as it may pain some of us. I mean, I'm no fan of losing these big old trees, but if it's not safe and the condition that they replant one of the same, then I would have to support this. So can we have would you like to vote to approve this this works to the tree, please? All those in favour? Okay, and then unanimous again. Thank you very much. Okay, and that, I do believe, concludes our business here tonight. And the time is 8:18, and I will close this meeting of Development Control. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you. I can breathe now. Thank you.